Ever had a gut feeling about your muscle health? Today, we're diving into the incredible story of a molecule called Urolithin A. We're going to trace its journey all the way from the food you eat to the tiny powerhouses inside your cells.
So let's start with the big question, the one that frames our whole story today. Could the real secret to staying strong as we get older actually be hiding deep inside your gut? I know, it sounds a little out there, but stick with me, because the science here is pretty amazing.
But before we get to the solution, we have to understand the problem. And it's a problem we all face eventually, that natural and kind of frustrating decline in our muscle strength as the years go by.
It's just a fact of life, right? As we age, we tend to lose a bit of that muscle mass and stamina, and scientists are now pointing the finger at a specific culprit: the health of our mitochondria. You know, those are the little power plants inside every single one of our cells. When they start to sputter, so do we. Okay, so we've got aging muscles and tired little power plants. But this is where the story takes a really wild and unexpected turn, connecting the dots between our dinner plate and our cellular health in a way you probably never imagined.
We all hear about superfoods, right? Eat pomegranates, snack on walnuts, have some berries. They're packed with these great antioxidants called allagitannins, and we just kind of assume our body soaks up all that goodness directly. Well, it turns out that's not what happens at all.
And here's the twist. Our bodies are actually terrible at absorbing these big, complex molecules on their own. They just can't get through the door, so to speak. So all those amazing compounds are basically stuck, unable to get into our system to do any good. So, how do we get the benefits? Well, this is where our gut microbiome steps into the spotlight. It's the hero of the story. You have specific bacteria in your gut that act like tiny little factories. They take these polyphenols, break them down, and transform them into something brand new and way more powerful.
And those brand new powerful compounds, they have a name: urolithins. These are the molecules that can actually get absorbed into our system and, as we're about to see, potentially make a huge difference.
But here's a massive catch. It turns out this whole process is like a lottery. Not everyone has the right bacteria to do this job. Scientists actually call it your metabotype. It means you could eat pomegranates all day long and produce absolutely zero urolithins, while the person next to you is a super producer. It all depends on who's living in your gut.
Now, of all the different types of urolithins, there is one that has scientists really excited. It's called Urolithin A. So let's zoom in on this one because it's the main event when it comes to muscle health.
So how is this stuff supposed to work? Well, the leading theory is that Urolithin A helps our cells clean house. See, as we age, our cells get cluttered with old, damaged mitochondria that just aren't working right. Urolithin A seems to kickstart a process called mitophagy, which is basically the cell's dedicated cleanup crew. It comes in, bags up all the old, junky power plants, and recycles them.
Okay, that sounds fantastic in a lab. A cellular cleanup crew? Sign me up. But here's the real multi-million-dollar question. Does cleaning up our cells actually translate into real-world benefits? Does it make older adults stronger or help them last longer? To answer that, you can't just rely on theories. You need the gold standard of scientific evidence. And that brings us to the heart of our story today, a major human clinical trial published in the journal JAMA Network Open back in 2022.
So let's look inside the study. They took 66 older adults between 65 and 90 years old. For 4 months, they split them into 2 groups. Half got a pretty hefty daily dose of Urolithin A, and the other half got a placebo, a sugar pill. The main things they were looking for were improvements in how far they could walk in 6 minutes and their muscles' raw energy production. All right, so after 4 months of this, what did the results actually show? Let's break it down, because this is where the story gets really, really nuanced. So let's start with those primary goals, the main things they hoped to see. And they didn't happen. When they compared the Urolithin A group to the placebo group, there was no significant improvement in their walking distance or in their muscles' ability to produce energy. That's a huge finding. On paper, it looks like a failure. But hold on, that is not the end of the story, not even close. Because when the researchers started digging into all the other things they were measuring, their secondary goals, a very different and much more promising picture started to emerge. Check this out. When they looked at muscle endurance, basically how many times a muscle could contract before it just gave out, the Urolithin A group saw a significant improvement over the placebo group. This suggests it wasn't making them stronger necessarily, but it was helping their muscles resist getting tired.
And the good news kept coming when they looked at the blood work. The Urolithin A group saw big drops in things like C-reactive protein, which is a major red flag for inflammation in the body. They also saw decreases in other markers linked to cellular stress. So this was real biological proof that even if they weren't walking faster, something good was definitely happening under the hood.
So what do we make of all this? The main performance goals weren't met, but we saw some really promising results for endurance and cellular health. Let's try to put all these pieces together and figure out what it means for the future.
You know, the researchers who actually ran the study summed it up perfectly. They said that Urolithin A is a promising approach, but, and this is a big but, future work is needed to confirm this finding. That's classic, cautious scientific optimism, and it's exactly the right take.
So here's the bottom line. Is Urolithin A some kind of magic bullet for reversing muscle aging? No, not based on this study. But does it show real, tangible promise for improving muscle endurance and boosting our health at a deep cellular level? Yes, absolutely.
And that leaves us with this final, fascinating idea to chew on. This whole story suggests that the future of healthy aging might be less about what we eat and more about what our unique collection of gut bacteria can do with what we eat. The question isn't just, are you eating your superfoods, but is your microbiome ready to unlock their secret?